Jacob Sonnenschein here with the NYSide. I'm with Dane Neller, the owner of Shakespeare & Co. First of all, the coffee shop, whose idea was it?
So the coffee shop was my idea, but let's not think of this as a coffee shop. Let's think of this as a bookstore cafe, almost a new phenomenon, where the coffee shop and the bookstore are integrated organically within each other. Because I believe the bookstore of the future is a bookstore cafe. So, but it was my idea. When I was at Dina DeLuca, we did all of the coffee shops for Borders, and Borders is since no longer with us. But Dina DeLuca owned those cafes, and they were a very profitable side of the business. So it was I saw this as a natural adjacency for a bookstore, because I believe community gathering and hanging out goes really well with bookstores, and it's a really natural ambiance for the two.
How specifically have you cultivated that in a way that that it is consistent?
So those are two good questions. So first, I believe that wherever a retailer goes, they need to be part of the local flavor of the community. I believe that if you can offer a place that is local in flavor, relevant to your constituents in the neighborhood, and you combine that with great service, great food and coffee, wonderful book selections, great curation, and our textbooks downstairs, which is really important, and a feeling of richness in life, because bookstores are ultimately about living a rich life. I mean, in a deep sense, morally, culturally. Then it cultivates itself naturally. It's a whole thing.
But the people have to buy the books. And how do you make sure that when they're here, they're buying books?
I don't want to make sure. I don't want to make sure of anything. I just want to offer the customers an experience. And if that experience is true, and I mean true, what I mean by true, if it's authentic, if what I'm offering are books that are what they want, and books that are important, and there's a great selection, and it goes across the genres that people want. If I'm offering a wonderful place to hang out and talk to friends, or just be left alone to look on your use your Wi-Fi, then I've been successful. The customer will do the rest.
Yeah, that's a very, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a very unique mindset for someone that has had the title Chief Executive Officer. Why are you different? And I think you've been successful, and what makes you different, and what makes that mentality work?
Let me just answer that question with an anecdote.
Yeah.
So Paul O'Neill was the CEO of Alcoa before he was the Secretary of Treasury. It was an ailing aluminum manufacturer. And the first thing that he did wasn't what one would think on Wall Street you would do. You'd be focused on increasing sales, getting more product in, more profitability, increase your product margins. The first thing he did is he wanted to make sure that everyone who worked in that store and who worked at Alcoa was safe. So safety. Now, why would that be at the top of his list?
That's weird.
And the reason is that when he went into Alcoa, he had one of the worst safety records ever.
Okay.
So you might ask, why would he do that? Because they had a bad safety record. He spent a year doing that, and he took their safety record for hazardous conditions from unacceptable levels to nil areas. And the stores and the company's profits started going up. And the sales went up, and the margins went up. Why do you think that happened?
Well, first of all, I guess people felt safer when they went in there, but you can feel safer, but you still have to want the product.
But in that case, why did Alcoa's sales go up? It went up because the employees felt they were being taken care of.
And then they were more productive?
Yes.
Got it.
So my point is, you don't drive sales by saying, I'm going to drive sales. You drive sales from the bottom up. Then it happens. So he attacked productivity by deciding what were the problems, what were the morale issues, not from saying, well, just drive sales.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying in a store, you make a beautiful retail experience by making sure you're delivering on everything that a customer needs. The rest follows. Great product, great curation, great wonderful book selection, wonderful food, great customer service, a nice atmosphere where people can listen to nice music. All that stuff then combines into something that one hopes a customer will want come and repeat and come back and back and back.
And correct me if I'm wrong. That takes knowing your market and your market here. Are there people that want that experience? There are people that are very intellectually stimulated. There are people that don't want sugared up dessert coffee drinks. They want quality coffee.
Yes, you have to know your community. That's what I was saying.
And it's convenient for you. You're right here on 68th and Lex on the Upper East Side. Did you say when you bought the place? Did you say, all right, I'm buying this place because I know this market and this is how I'm going to run my business?
I think this is one of the best locations in New York City for lots of reasons for what we're doing. It has this incredibly wealth is not the right word, this diverse and rich academic community, culturally, that plays so well into a bookstore. And as you know, Shakespeare sells textbooks and trade books. So I said, this is wonderful. It's a great place. It has a neighborhood that surrounds it of people who are very literate and love to read. And it has subway traffic for people who like to stop. So it had all the combinations of what I saw to be a great market for what I view this as our first flagship store. It was a great way to start.
So do you think that your mindset of create a really good experience, kind of allow people to just enjoy what you have here, don't always think so strategically? I know you have to think strategically, but do you think that gives you a competitive edge in terms of now hopping around the city and creating more stores because I know you want to grow?
So again, it comes back to the customer. You think from the customer out, not from here to the customer. So yes, I think when you know your customer, then you can deliver a product that is right. I will continue to build on the grand theme here about richness of life, cultural beacon, great service, great curation, intimacy, all that's what we're delivering. Those are the values we're delivering.
The store is very well stocked. How do you make sure that you don't have an oversupply of books? How do you make sure that you're really generating some demand?
What are we trying to do here at Shakespeare? So there are three things that we have at the store. So the first value, not necessarily the most important, but a very important one, is community, localness. Cafes are perfect places for that. So I've mentioned that before. So that was the first thing I wanted to do. And that's why I thought it was important to create a cafe that had seating in the back front, a little in the back, so it was like one and the same. It wasn't trying to bifurcate the cafe from the bookstore. Two, the other value that's very important is what I would say from big to small. From big box to small box retailer. From infinite selection of product and poor customer service or little customer service, kind of the Walmart or Costco model, to wonderfully curated products.
What do you mean by that?
Knowing what your customer wants, rather than just throwing everything against the wall and hoping that you find it. Selection is another way to say it. Great selection. Service, customer service. People want to go into, if you want to get a product and you want to get it quickly and you want to get it cheapest, you go online. If you want an experience and you want someone to help you and you want to get exactly what you want, you go into a store. So the second value was all the service, intimacy, and I would say selection and curation. The third one is self-expression. We live now in a world where people have the ability to express themselves very efficiently through a lot of media. With our Espresso book machine, now you can go into the store and become your own author immediately. This machine can produce a book in 3 or 4 minutes. Here's a book. I believe this is a HarperCollins novel. And this is one that we produced in about four minutes. We print it and we put it on the shelf. And it says, printed just in time. It's sustainable because we only print what you need. There's no returns. 40% of the book business is returnable. So now we meet supply with demand. We have 7 million titles on this machine. We have the entire
And you're not
collection.
oversupplying your store?
Am I oversupplying the store? No, because I'm not printing every book on the shelf. But if you walk over and you say, you know what, I love this book by Garth Stein, but he did another one and it's not here, let me just go to the information desk and see if you have it. And we say, of course we have it. Have a cup of coffee, we'll print it out for you. So that's matching supply with demand. You're actually not oversupplying, you're directly matching.
You're starting with the demand.
You're directly matching supply with demand.
Yeah.
It's just in time.
Sure.
So now this allows a bookstore of 2,500 square feet to compete with Amazon without having to stock every book.
And so...
And the other aspect of this is self-publishing, because now these are published books. Then we have a relationship with Google where we have all the public domain books. By the way, we respect intellectual property rights. Everything printed on this machine, the author or the creator gets paid. This is all honors all intellectual property rights, and we can do a lot of other things. And then the other thing we do is our custom printing. So if you're an author, if you're a student at Hunter, you have a thesis you want written, or you have a great memoir you want to write, you have the great American novel, and we will print it for you. We'll not only print it for you, we'll sell it on our shelves.
And is it more cost effective for an author to print here than to use a publisher? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't this only work for an author if the author wants to have their book in Shakespeare & Co.?
Well, we have 100 other machines in other locations.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
So you can we don't have 100 Shakespeares, but we're at Barnes & Noble, we're at the Tattered Cover, we're at McNally Jackson, we're at Harvard Bookstore, we're at Powell's, we're all over the world. So you can be instantly published. Now, it's better for the author because the author is not being cut out by all the middle people. Now you can you produce right on demand. The bookstore doesn't have to oversupply. It produces what it needs. And now you can give more to the author.
It sounds like a lot of the success of Shakespeare & Co. has been driven by a kind of strength of mindset you have. You always come back to, there's things I can't control, and I try to just create a good experience, and you come back to that.
Always come back to the customer. The customer is the most important thing. When you know your customer and you know what they want, and as I said, my top value is richness of life. When you create a retail experience, you have to create a set of values. If you think of it like a pyramid, at the top point is called a cultural richness of life, and from there goes lines. One line is community and local. Another line is selection and curation. Another line is self-expression. Those are values. You start from values, and then you build a retail store. If you don't start with values, you're lost.
So I was going to say, when you expand, I know that you want to expand nationally. I was going to ask, how do you make sure that when you go to X location, you're finding people that have these kinds of values? But now I'm going to ask a different question. Are you going to just find those niches, those areas where those values are because you want to start with the customer? Is that the strategy?
So, again, it's not so top-down. You have a little more, your questions are somewhat top-down.
Sure.
So if you believe that if your values are somewhat universal, people like to hang out. I think we're social beings.
Sure, yeah.
People like to talk about themselves because we're vain creatures. And people like to have a cultural experience around books and culture and the printed word. You could go to a lot of different places because these are universal values.
But how do you know? You got to go to a place at some point.
So when you pick a spot, you want to you want to be somewhat commercial. You don't want to go to the middle of the Yukon where there's no people. But you will want to. But there's lots of places you can go to. You could go to, as I said, in the city. You could go to You could go to St. Mark's Place, you'll have a different customer. You could go to the West Side, you get a different customer. You could go to Des Moines, Iowa, you get a different
But
customer.
everyone's got those basic values.
Yes.
So you just rely on just
That's why
the
you
strength
start
of your
with
product.
the strength of our values.
Not product values. Yep. It's not just the book, the coffee, it's the values, it's the experience. And you start with the strength.
You make sure you're identifying the values that you believe are happening. And that, as I said, I'm not a bike shop. I'm a bookstore. So I work those products into that value equation. The fundamental merchandising principle is about letting the product be the hero. Simplify. Less is more. That's it. When Apple designed this phone, Jobs reduced to the most important principles what was the most functional thing that you could want. He didn't mess it up with all these different clutter. A great retailer has to adopt what you might say are Zen principles.
Yeah.
Less is more. Simplicity. Form follows function.
I think a lot of people would ask you, can you please go into the corporate world or into finance so that we can have someone with those values in those circles? You probably won't. You love what you're doing.
I used to be in the financial world.
You did.
Yes.
And did it... Now the conversation is leaving Shakespeare & Co., but I don't care. This is very interesting.
When I say values, I don't mean good manners. I mean it in a deep sense about what we are, what we value. When we listen to the politicians fighting, which is pitiful these days, what are they valuing? What does Donald Trump value? What does Hillary value? What is Bernie Sanders valuing? So all that Bernie Sanders is saying, why can't we value health care as important as security? It's about value. So let's get back to Wall Street.
Okay.
What do they value?
Well, at face value, they value money. Based on what you're saying, there's a way that they get to that money. And that process shows some other values.
If they only value money, and they don't value fair play, or they don't value other elements of living or commonwealth, then you'll have a deeply corrupt system. Because if you only value money and you only value greed, guess what's going to happen? You're going to create a system that's only valuing money and greed. The problem is, at times, do they really value their customer? Or do they really value their shareholder? Or do they just value what they're trying to get? What we had in 2008 was the culmination of a system where truly the employees, the management of these companies valued their jobs. They valued their bonuses. Did they care about their shareholders? Did they care about their depositors? No, they didn't. We know that. We see that now.
Yeah. Do you see your ownership of these businesses as, at this point, as a way to set a template of the way you think business should be conducted in our world? Or is it just, I'm happy to be doing this, and this is my life, and I'm happy?
That's a good question. And I don't believe I'm that grandiose to think that big. But what I do care about is the culture of America. And I think culture is very important. So I do believe my role here, in one deep way, is delivering a rich cultural life to America. I want to give to American cities more than just mall walking.
Yeah.
I want them to feel that books are our connection to civilization.
Yeah.
It's everything. Without books, what are we? We have no memory. We have no collective unconscious. So that's very important to me.
I got to ask you, what do you love more about your job right now? Is it the experience you give people and therefore the experience you receive? Or is it, do you enjoy business a little bit more? What's the good part? What's the good stuff?
Creating.
Okay, so it's creating the business and it's creating the experience. It's the whole thing.
Delivering something that people want. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Yeah. Dane Neller, Jacob Sonnenschein. Thanks.